Hello and welcome to another episode of The Wave, the Wonderful Alberni Valley Experience. I have a very dear and special guest today who's going to be sharing her wave, her wonderful Alberni Valley experience. Although I did have her on the show once before, or actually once or twice before, but this time we're going to be talking about her personal wonderful Alberni Valley experience. As far as I remember, she's been in Port Alberni for a couple of years now, maybe two or three. We'll clarify that in a moment as we get into the interview. But so far, it has been exactly what we are talking about, a wonderful Alberni Valley experience. So please welcome my guest for today, Pastor Brenda Nestegaard-Paul. Did I say your name right?
You did.
Okay,
Well done.
I did it last time.
You did a really good job.
Well, thank you for coming back on the show. I know we've been interviewing you on the show for the past few episodes. I think if I recall, there's two episodes.
Yes.
The one that hasn't even aired yet.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the COVID hit and all that stuff, right?
Exactly.
Anyways, Pastor Brenda, how long have you been here in Port Alberni?
I have been here for 3.5 years.
Okay, so do you recall what month or time of the year that you first came here?
Yeah, I moved here in November of 2016 and started work at Trinity Anglican Lutheran Church on December 1st.
Okay.
And so what brought me here is indeed...
Oh, before that, I would just like to interject a little bit, like an introduction to the Trinity Anglican Lutheran Church.
Right.
When I first got to Port Alberni as well, 5 years ago, 2015, I looked up LGBTQ friendly churches. And I found one. I think you weren't here then, because you came in 2016. So I was here in 2015. So the first thing I wanted to do was find a LGBTQ friendly church, and the only one I found was the United Church. And then I found after a while I found a flyer on our door inviting us to a neighborhood meeting, and that's where I first encountered the wonderful Trinity Anglican Lutheran Church, which is the only church, mind you, that has a rainbow bench in front of it, proudly displayed to welcome everybody from all colors and all cultures.
Absolutely.
So let's
that bench has been there now for a year and a half. And but yeah, what's so important about it being a rainbow bench is the promise. That's what a rainbow represents, right? Promise. But it is the promise that indeed all are welcome, and that at Trinity we live up to that. That we need to live up to that, and everyone is welcome to be a part of the community, whoever you are.
Yes, I never felt so welcome every time I come to your church. The first message out the door when you stand up in that pulpit is welcome welcome to Trinity Church, whatever faith, whatever culture. You know, I still have that partly memorized, your opening spiel on all the service.
Whoever you are,
exactly.
And wherever you are in your journey of faith, you are welcome in this place.
Yes, that's why I kept on coming back until COVID hit and we were able to come back.
I know.
And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if you remember, the first meaning of the wave, which now means Wonderful Alberni Valley Experience, but the first meaning of the wave came to me in the social hall of Trinity Church.
Yes.
When we were having a roundtable meeting about...
That's right.
Something. Was it a neighborhood meeting?
It was about the building.
It was about the building. And
That's
we gave...
about the renovation.
Welcoming something. I forget what the original meaning of the wave, but vibrant environment. Welcoming something, A, and then vibrant environment. I forget the letter A. Accepting, yeah, welcoming, accepting, vibrant environment. And that's exactly how I felt with Trinity. So actually, in a way, the wave was born in that hall, that Trinity Hall.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, right? And then it evolved and became the Wonderful Alberni Valley Experience. Even in our first episode, I introduced the wave as Welcome to the Alberni Valley Experience. Then as time went by, we coined it to become more general. So Wonderful Alberni Valley Experience. So let's talk about that, Pastor Brenda. Your Wonderful Alberni Valley Experience began in November of 2016. So tell us about that.
Well, actually, it's what brought me here. In that it was, a beautiful word, serendipity. I was being interviewed for the position back in August of 2016. No, I'm sorry, beginning of September of 2016. And so I was to stay overnight as well. And I had a really good feeling about the interview and how it was going. And I was told at the end of that day, before I retired, that a straw poll had been taken by the committee, and they were going to recommend that I be appointed to the position. And so then I went up to my hotel room and I opened up my laptop and I started, okay, so what's available for me to be able to rent in town? And anyway, there were 3 places that met my needs. And so I quickly just sent out emails and said, okay, I'm here for a short period of time tomorrow morning, but if I could see your place the next morning, that would be great.
Okay, let me just pause for a little bit. So at the time when you were interviewing, where were you? Were you in Victoria or somewhere in the
I was in
island?
Powell River.
Okay,
I was on the Sunshine Coast.
Okay.
So the next morning, I again opened up my laptop and there was one response. And so I arranged to be able to go and see the place. And as soon as I was driving up to this house on Roseboro, I had a really good feeling about it. And I met the house owner and toured the place and just had this great vibe about it. And she said that, finally I just said to her, I would really love to live here. And she said, well, I'm taking applications. And I went, oh, okay. And she said, I've had 50 people look at it. I'm narrowing it down. I know. And then she goes, but I'm going to narrow it down to 4 and I'll make up my mind by Thursday. And this was a Monday. And I went, okay. And so filled out the application, a little bit more of chit chat. Again, it just felt really, really good. And then I had to leave. And so I have a little bit of time on my way to the ferry. So I stopped off at Coombs. I hadn't seen the goats on the roof for a while. And while I'm walking around in the driveway, I get this phone call. And it was the house owner of that place. And she just said, as soon as you walked out, I knew you were the one that I wanted to be able to. And so, of course, I said yes. The funny thing is, I didn't even have the job yet, but I had the house.
Well, that's you. You're daring.
But I just knew that it was all going to fall into place. What's lovely about all of it is that it wasn't until I moved to Port Alberni that I started to learn that Port Alberni had a reputation, that it had this
was it a good reputation or a bad reputation?
Well, that people outside of Port Alberni, right? That I would go to some events and they would say, oh yeah, Port Alberni, the armpit of Vancouver Island and stuff like that.
No, it's somewhere else. Okay.
I know. And then I would learn about how, I guess it was in 2015, there was this Money Sense article that rated Port Alberni as the worst place in Canada to live. And I didn't know any of that before I came here. And I have to tell you, I'm so glad that I didn't. Because,
would that have changed your mind?
No, I'm the kind of person that always wants to make up my own mind anyway.
Okay.
Right? I
Of
learn
course.
something, right? I learn something about whatever and I park it and then I do my own research. But the thing is that this place, the last thing it is the armpit of anything. And the last place this is one of the best places to live in Canada.
I agree.
I've lived in a lot of different places, and Port Alberni has so much going for it. It's not to say it doesn't have its challenges, but it has so much going for it. And I am just so glad that serendipity brought me to this place, and that it all started with my husband getting sick, and that put a whole bunch of things into play. But I am so thankful that I am here, and yeah, and since then I've got lots of good stories.
Oh
But
yeah, I'm sure.
it's a
It's
great
been four
place to live.
years now, basically.
Almost, yeah.
Hmm.
So no, it's a great place to live. Great people, such as yourself.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think that negative publicity is a ploy to keep people away from it.
You
It's
know,
a
I
serve.
do know. It's funny. I grew up in Regina, Saskatchewan, and there a lot of people who have never been there also have negative things to say about Regina. And I always want to say, you really should live there because it's a wonderful city. It's a beautiful place. But my mom's attitude is, oh, let them think those things. It'll keep it just the right size, right?
Exactly.
However, no, I think no, Port Alberni is it's a great community, and I'm really privileged to be able to live and work here.
Oh, that's so great. That's so nice to hear. Yeah, Port Alberni is a wonderful place. That's why that's also my part. When I first came here, I'm similar to your experience. When I first came here, uh, I just fell in love with the place. That thing that in my case it's not serendipity, it's serenity. The place was
Okay,
just so serene, so peaceful, so calm. No traffic, no paid parking.
you came from Vancouver.
Yeah, I came from Vancouver, from Coquitlam. In Coquitlam, I'm a majority. I'm Asian. I'm a majority. Here, I'm a minority.
That's a bit of a switch.
It's a bit of it, and it has become a wonderful valley experience. But then I heard all these bad things about negative, the worst place to live, and especially the time when those two killers were killing all over the interior, and they kept
Right.
on stressing they were the killers from Port Alberni, the killers from Port Alberni. I
Yeah.
said, yeah, that's how good Port Alberni is. We export our killers so they don't kill anybody here.
Ooh. Ooh.
It's another strategy. Anyways,
Yeah, indeed.
I just can't believe that the voices, the negative voices, are so strong. So I said I'm gonna do something about it. So I created the wave, so there'll be a strong voice about the positive. And I'm sure you have
Absolutely.
a lot of stories you'd like to share with us. So tell us a bit some of those stories of
Oh,
your wonderful Alberni Valley experience. Like
well,
I'm curious to know about the story behind the rainbow bench. How
oh,
about
sure,
that? Okay.
sure. I was actually I was inspired by another church, an Anglican church in Courtney, and I saw this bench, a rainbow bench there, and I just thought, that would be a wonderful witness, just to be able to say this is who we are in this church, and that all are welcome. But also, it's kind of nice when people are walking by that they've got a place where they can kind of get out of the elements and just take a load off and sit on the bench. So um, I just started talking to the people that are part of the faith community, and I just said, what do you think? Don't you think this would be a great idea? And people agreed. And so finally, one of the lovely members of the community, Tom Stokes, he was willing to build it, and then he and Bronwyn got the paint, and we covered the costs for all of it. And then when it was ready, Tom and Bob Morgan, they chained it to the ground so that it would stay in place. And lo and behold, we had our rainbow bench, and then had a wonderful day of blessing. That was at the end of January in 2019, where we blessed it, and I see it used a lot, and I'm just so glad that it's there, and it really does say something about our community and all of us together.
Definitely. A welcoming, accepting, vibrant environment right there on the
Absolutely.
corner of Angus and Fifth. That's where that beautiful church is. Oh, by the way, a part of the Wonderful Alberni Valley Experience was you got registered as a emergency center for,
Yes.
and then you got the grant and you got the funding for it, and you're already beginning construction when this COVID thing hit. But that's all part of the Wonderful Alberni Valley Experience. That you have made big strides in that church, and that's part of your experience. So would you like to share a little bit about that?
Sure. We lots of people have lots of ideas, and sometimes it just takes a catalyst to bring it all together. And so with when you're talking about us becoming an emergency center, that was building on a need that others in our congregation saw for quite a while. And so we just worked together to be able to make that happen. We, in getting the funding together to be able to do the improvements that are necessary, to be able to also to support that initiative. The congregation got behind it, where wider church bodies got behind it. And what's really cool is that local businesses in Port Alberni got behind it as well. And we are 95% finished as far as
really?
the reno. Oh yeah, we are very, very close. In fact, just prior to this interview, I was talking to those that are involved with grading at the back, so that we can get the yard in between the two wings in place. And inside it's so close for it to be done. And
Well, hasn't the pandemic affected it in a way?
it just slowed it down. It really slowed it down. And which is totally understandable, because we still did have some workers come, but they had to, of course, maintain social distance. At different junctures over the last few months, one of the individuals actually did get COVID-19.
Oh.
And so then, yeah, so it has taken the time it is needed, but we are very, very close to it being done. And it is wonderful that we were going to have this center so that when there is any kind of a tragedy, emergency, people in Southport, southern part of town, will be able to have a gathering spot that everyone knows about, and we'll have a lot of nice conveniences there for them as well. And then plus the improvements also go a long way for all of the other ways that the wider community uses our facility and our hall. And it just makes it easier for everybody, right? For accessibility, and also for safety. And so there's lots of different reasons. And we're just very excited and thrilled that people supported it the way they have.
That's so wonderful to hear. Like, you're 95% almost there. And I just thought about a profound coincidence. So here you are building for other people, but not shortly after, not long after rather, you bought your first home. Or was it your first home? You bought a home here in the wonderful Alberni Valley. That's another wonderful Alberni Valley experience I'd like you to share with us today.
Oh, okay. Well, it was the right moment at the right time. And I, just being of a certain age, just thought that if I'm ever going to do this, and especially, retirement being a few years down the road yet, but for, housing security, all of those kinds of things, that actually now was the time for me to purchase a home. And so I looked around, and in my modest type of parameters for what I was wanting to spend, was really looking, because prices were really going this way very quickly. And then this townhouse became available. And it was a private sale, and the owners were from California. But at any rate, it eventually worked in my favor. And so I took ownership last August. And ever since, I've been just doing, the improvements and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, I've always, wherever I rented, I always left a place nicer than when I found it. It was my home, and I was always proud to be able to call wherever I was my home. And so now I'm just doing it in my own home. And so during this pandemic, and especially during when the lockdown was at its worst, it was kind of nice just being able to also focus on getting this place all together. And one of my favorite stories in that is a certain day, I think it was back in April, and it was very, very sunny, and my courtyard totally needed to be dug out. I had 6 inches of this ugly clay and gravel and rock. And there was just my daughter Bronwyn and myself, and then she put out the word, and all of a sudden I had these 3 wonderful helpers, this esteemed host included, and 3 hours later we had it
I
all
remember
together.
that day. The pizza was delicious, by the way.
Okay. And but actually, you know what? My courtyard's totally done, and it looks fabulous.
I should see it one of these days.
Oh, I know. I have to have, I was just thinking that the other day. I need to have a social distance friendly gathering for those who help me to put together. But it is a fabulous space, and I really do enjoy my home.
Oh, I can imagine. I saw your garden last time at Roseboro. Was it Rosenboro?
Yeah,
Or
Roseboro.
something like that. Your home was very lovely then, and you had a beautiful garden and a beautiful home. And I had the privilege of having a few dinners there, and I always loved coming over. And now this townhouse, we haven't had a official housewarming yet, have we? Because of the COVID thing.
No, because of the pandemic. But
Mm-hmm.
it'll happen. It'll happen eventually. I might have to have a whole bunch of them. That's just small groups.
Yeah, like in batches.
That's right.
We're
That's
calling
right.
them bubble batches.
Well, there we go. There we go.
So I hope it'll be in bubble 1, though.
Of course, darling. Of course.
Well,
Yeah,
summing
no.
up, we are coming to the close of the interview because I only have half an hour. Summing up, what would you, how would you summarize your wonderful Alberni Valley experience thus far?
How do I sum it up? It's my home. I'm going to get weepy.
Go ahead, I'll do it with you.
Certainly, what brought me here was, my spouse's illness, and I needed to find a new position. And so I looked, many different places. But anyway, it came to pass that this was the place. And of course, my focus in coming here then was my work. And then for 3 years until he just passed, being there for my husband. And so it's the twist of life that brought me here. There's a lot of sadness in the last 3.5 years. But during that time, there has also been a lot of joy. And that joy has come from the community I am privileged to serve and be a part of, but also, and the wider community I am privileged to be a part of, and to continually to meet people and to walk with and help to make this even a better place for all to be able to thrive and to live their lives. So it's blessing. It truly is blessing.
That's so wonderful. Thank you for sharing with us, Pastor Brenda. And now I'm getting weepy because I know your husband Ian just passed away. Was it in December?
In January.
Yeah. Oh, in January. Yeah. And we had a wonderful service up in a church somewhere in Nanaimo, where we had to drive to snow, but no, nothing was going to stop us. We went there. We were there.
I was so amazed that day that there were so many people who weren't able to make it, and yet there was still 100 people in the middle of that blizzard. It was amazing.
It was, and I was just so blessed to have been part of it and to be with you as you were with me when now I'm gonna get weepy. Because when my partner passed away, which is now part of my Alberni Valley experience, you were one of the first people here by my side, and you even helped me, contact the people that needed to be contacted, because I was a mess, and I don't know how I would have gotten through that night without you and Bronwyn and some of the other friends who were with me. So from me to you, it's a good thing I don't wear makeup. Yeah. So from me to you, thank you for being part of the Wonderful Alberni Valley Experience and being part of my Wonderful Alberni Valley Experience. That's all the time we have for today. I'm so glad you were able to join us, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you next time on The Wave.